Good morning. Okay, today for 1 hour, we will live somewhat with the slogan of our university with Ibn Khaldun. Maybe some of you have some backgrounds about Ibn Khaldun, some not. So we will try to get an overview over Ibn Khaldun and the important point or important book of Ibn Khaldun, which is Al-Muqaddimah. Okay, maybe the title is somewhat strange, Causality in History and Asabiyyah in Al-Umraan. Let's see, we will know the meaning of this in a minute, inshallah. You remember some of our backgrounds that we used in the presentations. The first one was the background of what? The one on the left side. Imr al-Qais, yes. And it was about the Golden Ode. It was on the 6th week. And then we moved forward to the 9th week to Ibn Battuta. And then today is with Ibn Khaldun. First, we began with the oral and written narratives, and then to the medieval encounters, and then we will not move in the tense very far away, and we will see something called states in flux, and we will know the meaning right now. The Golden Ode, and then the journey around the earth with Ibn Battuta, and then here we will move to the title, Causality in History and Asabiyyah in Al-Umraan, and we will see the meaning. Imr al-Qais, and then Ibn Battuta, and then Ibn Khaldun. We moved from the 6th century AD to the 14th century CE, and we will stay in the 14th century, actually with Ibn Khaldun, because he was a bit after Ibn Battuta. So it's the same century.
Is there any difference between AD and CE?
AD is before the birth of the Christ. It was earlier than the time that we are knowing now. So between the 6th century AD and 14th century CE, how many centuries? 20 centuries. Okay? But here we are in the same century. Okay. Let's go to some items and organize it to the introduction, and then the causality in history, and then what we say, al-asabiyyah in al-umraan. The introduction will know who is Ibn Khaldun. And then what do we mean with this term of states in flux? And then the chapters, headings of the muqaddimah in general. We'll move to the causality in history, in Ibn Khaldun's theory, and we will know what is history and reasons of untruth in historical information. We will go over 6 reasons, and then the untruth stories that he mentioned by transmitters of history, 5 stories we will mention, and then how to investigate historical information correctly. And then we'll move to our 3rd item, which is al-asabiyyah, to know blood relation and corresponding, purity of lineage in the savage Arabs, and then how lineages became confused together, relation between leadership and asabiyyah, and then the relation between nobility and asabiyyah, and the last thing, the masters and descents in asabiyyah.
What does asabiyyah mean?
So we will mention this in its place, not now, but we will mention it. What is asabiyyah meaning? Of course, now maybe most of you do not know the details or the answers of these questions. I'll repeat this slide as a final slide, inshallah. After that, we explain everything, and we'll see if you quote anything or not. Okay. In the introduction, we want to know who is Ibn Khaldun. Let's see.
Abdul Rahman ibn Khaldun, the 14th century social theorist from North Africa, is considered a pioneer and forerunner in the social science, historical philosophy, and early economic theory. Ibn Khaldun's magnus opus, al-muqaddimah, or the introduction, has influenced many scholars, including 17th century Ottoman historians, who used his theories to analyze the growth and decline of the Ottoman Empire. While in 19th century Europe, scholars acknowledged the significance of his works and considered Ibn Khaldun as one of the greatest philosophers of the Middle Ages. In Al-Muqaddimah, Ibn Khaldun declares new science, Ilm al-Umraan, the science of social organization, in which he dissects the factors of the religious, political, economic, military, and cultural spheres of life, therefore demonstrating the need for an effective management of social behavior and dynamics. His ideas later served the likes of Machiavelli, Vico, Kant, Durkheim, Spengler, and Worth.
So let's talk which century? 14th century, where actually his birth was in Tunis, and then he went to Morocco. Okay? Which branch?
Social science.
Only philosophy, historical philosophy, and economy. Okay, so we have three essential branches for Ibn Khaldun. Although he had other books in like jurisprudence and in Islam, in beliefs, in many other things. Okay, what was his influence? He influenced who? In 17th century, Ottoman scholars, because actually he focused upon the rise and the fall of the states. So the Ottoman Empire was one of them. And then the 19th century scholars, and Machiavelli and Kant and the others. Okay, which new science? When you will mention Ibn Khaldun, you will mention a new science. And this is important. Ilm al-Umraan, which is something that you know? Yes, and we will go somewhat, we will know what is Ilm al-Umraan. First, the title of our two lectures is States in Flux. The word flux is something changing and unstable. When we say, for example, education remains in a state of flux, means that it will take some time to settle down. Okay? So states in flux means that the states are not stable, that they rise, they fall, they are not stable. And this was Ibn Khaldun's main point to observe. Explanation of the rise and decline of states. Okay, chapters, headings of the muqaddimah. Of course, the muqaddimah may take a whole course, and we will not go over the whole muqaddimah. We are sticking to the title of States in Flux. So, if we have a quick look over the headings, first was on human civilization in general, and then on desert civilization, and then dynasties, caliphate, and royal authority, and then to sedentary civilization countries, and then to the crafts, and then to the sciences. We will not focus on all of them. The related things to the states in flux will be the first one that is on our lecture today, the human civilization in general and various kinds and the portion of the earth that is civilized. And the third one on dynasties, the caliphate and royal authority. This is on Wednesday, inshallah. Okay. First, or after the introduction, this is the second, causality in history. Let's see together, what is history? Look, when you will begin your muqaddimah reading and your pamphlet reading, you will find something like this. It should be known that history, in matter of fact, is information about human social organization, which itself is identical with world civilization. You will close the book, I think. I think you will find many, many strange and huge number of terms here. And I think you will be like this. You will think, oh, what did I do to do in me such thing? And to let me read such difficult and complicated things. But I want to tell you how to learn such difficult things in the surface. Actually, he was talking about history. But history, not only events, but human social organization, which is world civilization, which is al-umraan. Here, equal. Actually, when he talks about history, he talks about human social organization. He is talking about sociology. He is talking about civilization, not the word in Arabic hadara, but the word umraan. And we will know what is the meaning in depth. But when you will see, first thing affecting the history is the savagery. So people who are not living in like cities, countries, and our life, no, they are savages. And then the sociability. They are living in societies after them. Then the group feeling, which is the translation of al-asabiyyah.
What does exactly mean sociability?
Sociability is that no one can live only alone. He shall live in a society.
Like our social life.
Our social life. Okay? And this society is different from the savages to the countries, and there is some sort of change. So when I say causality in history and al-asabiyyah in umraan, it means that I'm not talking about the history as events, but the history as why and how. As analysis of the events, and we will see analysis based on which criteria. And when I mention the word asabiyyah in umraan, simply it's group feeling in civilization or in human social organization. And it was important to say it in Arabic because these are important terms for Ibn Khaldun. And then we will understand the meaning in English. And the superiority, these are things that affect the human social organization, or al-umraan. And then this will result in royal authorities, will result in human beings' occupations, the life, itself will result in sciences and crafts and will result in activities and efforts. And we will go over these. But this is how that you learn to study, for example, a hard passage like this, or in the introduction of your book, you shall have some smart arts to understand the issue. Still, what are the reasons of untruth in historical information? When we will transmit history, why do we transmit it wrongly? Why there are untruth in historical information? Get a minute and try to think about it, even with your peers, why there is untruth in history. Historical transmission. Conditions. Okay, this is one.
Being biased to the information.
Being
Biased, impartial.
This is something very important.
They say that history is written by winners, so they write their own perspective to that.
Yes, they own. Maybe it is related to that they are divided.
To cover weaknesses. To cover weaknesses.
To cover
Weakness.
the weakness. Yes, this is a reason.
The uncertainty of the memory of the people who wrote the history.
Yes, the transmitters of history.
Keep power upon those who are going to read the history. Keep power.
So let's see this together. Actually, you got almost all of the reasons. Partisanship for opinions. They are subdivided, not one opinion.
Partisanship is a tendency to support a particular group, cause, or viewpoint over another. While partisanship is a good quality to have if you're campaigning or rallying for a political candidate, because you believe so strongly in the person, there are some times when partisanship isn't appropriate. A judge, for example, should be neutral and not take sides, and might be accused of partisanship if she seems to favor one cause or political party. The word comes from the Italian partisan, member of a faction, with its root of part or party.
So if I love someone, I want to encourage him, so I will transmit everything with exaggeration. Oh, he is my hero. This is good to make some in the media when there is election and something like this. So you are exaggerating in describing someone. But this is not the truth when you are a judge or transmitting history. It shall not be like this. Okay, it was mentioned the reliance upon transmitters of history. Now I will not continue. I want to play with you. I need 15 volunteers. 5 with good handwriting. 5 with good hearing system, because someone will whisper. And good memory. 5 with good muscles, because they will lift an A4 paper for 2 minutes. Please, who are the 5 who will write? Papers are there. Writing. Writing. Good memory, please, here. Please. Writing. Writing. Who will write? And I need those who will memorize. Please, Ala. Please. I'll tell you about the play right now. We'll see. One, two, three, four, and the fifth. A volunteer, okay, and the fifth. And 5 with good muscles for an A4 paper to be lifted. Wallahi, it's only the paper, nothing else. Okay? Who wants to come? Just that he will show us something. Can you be here? Over here. Over here. Two others, please. Nothing will harm, wallahi. One. Okay. Now, I don't want you to look here. I want you to look there. Those with the papers, name, surname, address, specialization. 3 things on a landscape page. Name, surname, address, 1 word. Name, surname, address, specialization. Just write it with the big font, because I want them all to see it. Yes, name, surname, address, 2nd line, 3rd line, the specialization. 1 word. 1 word for the address. Did you write? I need 5 papers in my hand. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Is it okay or should I write?
خلاص. Anything. It's easy, يعني. It's not a test, it's a play. You shall laugh, يعني. Okay. The best of you who can memorize. Okay? Please come here. Read these papers and try to memorize. Let's try to memorize all of them.
I'm trying to.
Thank you. Thank you. 30 seconds.
That's I'm done. I should give them.
خلاص. You should give it to me. خلاص? Okay. Please, one moment. Each one of you a paper. You can have your heads here now. Paper. 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 Now, what we are doing is that you will tell her, you will tell him, you will tell him, you will tell him, and he will tell us what did he know. And you have here the papers lifted. This is the truth now. Huh? Begin the play. Where are the muscles? ها لا. It's only one time. لا خلاص. What you listened? Okay. I don't want to make any bias, distortion, anything. Let them. But no cheating, huh? I'm afraid. I think they will get it.
I think we will get it because they were easy.
And I don't want to make it complicated.
I wonder how you will pronounce my surname though. Yeah, Amra.
I said it.
Tamam, anlasın but the surname.
Now our hero will talk. Huh? Let's listen and you will see the comparison between what he listened to and between what is written.
I didn't get a lot of information, but I got names, Safa and Amiri and Shakiri.
What else?
I'm sorry, I think Amra is Amra and Shakiri and Arif and Muhammad Sharafuddin. I know Muhammad Sharafuddin because he's my friend.
Bias in
Yeah,
information.
exactly. I didn't get much information actually. You know, the information was transmitted to me in wrong way. Actually, I didn't get everything in the right way, to be honest.
Okay.
I just
You are
got, I just got
innocent.
names. I just got.
Thank you for everything. Thank you, all of you. Thank you. Thank you. However, even if it was like this, even if the transmission, because we are transmitting things under things and a chain, however, we have someone called Imam al-Bukhari. Maybe you know him. You know this name. Al-Imam al-Bukhari went once to a test in Baghdad, and he was in front of 10 scholars, each of them in the ilm al-hadith, the Prophet's sayings. And when there are transmitters of al-hadith, there is a chain of transmitters who deliver the correct hadith. So they tested al-Bukhari in 100 hadith, and they asked him if he knows these hadith or not. And they played a very small game. They changed one name in the chain of every hadith. Do you understand me? They changed only one name. And they asked al-Bukhari, after each hadith, do you know this hadith? He says, no, I did not hear about it. Do you know this hadith? No, I did not hear about it. Until they completed their 100 hadith. And they were astonished. Al-Bukhari does not know these basic hadith. So he said, it was his turn to talk. He said, about the first hadith that you mentioned, and he mentioned the wrong chain that they mentioned. I know it, but with another chain, which is blah, 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 blah. About the second hadith that you mentioned, the chain, blah, 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 the wrong one. So the correct one is blah, blah, blah. So they were all admiring him. Not only because he memorized 100 hadith with the correct chain, but that he memorized the chains of the 100 hadith with the wrong chains from the first time. So, the reliance upon transmitters is somewhat debatable. Maybe someone has a good memory, maybe not. Yani, let's say that the majority can make what we saw in the play, can make this kind of mistakes. But still, we have transmitters that can transmit things very accurately. Okay, unawareness of the purpose of the event. Let's watch this. Maybe someone of you or some of you, they watched it before, but let's see. I have a target of it.
At the airport, and they've got this deal for 5 donuts for $5, which is an awesome deal because it's pretty much the same price as buying 3 donuts anyway, so it doesn't matter. And I set my stuff down, and I pick up the paper, and I start reading the paper, and this guy sits down across from me. And so I, look over the paper, and he kind of gives me a bit of a smile, and I give him a bit of a nod, and I go back to reading the business section. A little while later, I hear this rustling on the table, and I'm like, I look over, and the guy has got his hand in the bag of donuts. okay, that's a bit weird, but it doesn't really matter. The guy looks like he's homeless. He probably needs it more than I do. And I've still got 4 donuts anyways, and I'm not going to eat all 4 donuts, so what do I care? So I reach in the bag and I grab a donut and I start eating it. And I go back to reading the paper. So I'm just getting into the social pages and I hear this rustling on the table again. And I look over and the guy's got his hand in the bag of donuts again. He takes a bite and I'm like, what the crap? Now I'm getting a bit angry, but the precedent has been set and so I don't feel like I can say anything. But I reach into the bag a bit more aggressively, I take a bite, and I just shake my head like, whatever. So a few minutes have gone by, and there's this call in the loudspeaker for the next departure, and the guy gets up and he starts gathering up all his stuff, and he gets to the end of the table and he stops. And I see him out of the corner of my eye, and he reaches into the bag, and he pulls out the last donut. And I'm like, seriously? And he looks at me, he breaks it in 2, and he hands it to me. I reach out, and I take this half, and I'm in total disbelief. And he kind of nods at me, and he walks off. So, while I'm sitting here, pondering the absurdity of what's just happened, I hear the call for my flight. And so I get up, and I grab my bag, and I grab my jacket. And under my jacket is my bag of donuts.
What did we learn about this scene? How he was unaware of the purpose. But he thought that he knows everything. And he is accusing the man in front of him, why does he eat my cookies? And they were not his cookies. Okay? So, sometimes we are unaware of the purpose, why someone did such a thing. This will make us transfer the history information wrongly, not correctly. This is a cause. Okay. Ambiguities and artificial distortions, the media, the magic of the media that can make this distortion. Sometimes you are high-ranking persons with praise. It's like a child who can see his father that he is the Superman. Let's watch.
Daddy is the sweetest daddy in the world. Daddy is the most handsome. The smartest. The most clever. The kindest. He is my Superman. Daddy wants me to do well at school. Daddy is just great.
I want to tell you that Ibn Khaldun wrote this without watching any media, without seeing these scenes. We are lucky that we have something that may explain his words. These are his words. Look how difficult we can see the words and how easy that we can simplify it, how that we can understand. Okay, the final reason of untruth in historical information, he mentioned the most important thing is the nature of conditions arising in civilization. And we mentioned civilization is al-umraan, okay, which is social organization, okay? I want you all to know history, civilization, social organization, al-umraan, that these are in the theory of Ibn Khaldun, they are the same. Okay? طيب. Untruth stories transmitted in history. Okay, he mentioned that the result of these reasons are stories that are not logic, are unlogic stories. Like, for example, sea monsters preventing Alexander from building Alexandria. Al-Mas'udi said, and you will read this, that there were sea monsters and they prevented Alexander from building Alexandria. So he went in a wooden caravan and he dived into the Mediterranean and he drew the monsters and he made statues of the monsters. So when the monsters came up, they watched them, so they escaped and he was able to build Alexandria. Look how that it is unlogic. Jinn have many heads. Of course, the jinn, we cannot see them. No one saw them. They are unseen. But we can only see that they have like bad, ugly faces, if we can say, but actually they are not like this. We are only supposing. Statue of Starling at Rome, and the olive oil. It was said by Al-Mas'udi that maybe the starlings go to this statue with olives. They are bringing olives, and the statue, it is giving the oil, the olive oil, to the Romans. Something very strange. Gate city that have around 10,000 gates, and this is something unbelievable. Al-Bakri said about it, and this was transmitted. There was a city and it had 10,000 gates, and the circumference of this city, it was like 30 days of journey. Something very strange. Cooper City that swallows those who fall down in it. These are things that maybe they are transmitted in history and we cannot imagine, or we cannot know what is the origin of these events. Okay. So, what is the result? Ibn Khaldun said that to investigate historical information correctly, you shall know the nature of civilization. This what makes the critical investigation of them possible. You will find this. So he is relying upon why and how. The application of the events of history and what can be applied in our civilization, really applied in our civilization. This is his way. So Ibn Khaldun is not referring to historical methods or what we say historiography, but rather to a science which involves explanation of the causes and origins of existing things, and deep knowledge of the how and why of events. Ibn Khaldun's method relied on criticism and observation, comparison, examination. He used scientific criticism to analyze accounts of historical events. The sources of these accounts and the techniques used by historians examining and comparing various different accounts in order to get rid of falsifications and exaggerations and obtain some objective idea of what had actually happened. This is Ibn Khaldun's way of thinking about history. Mhm. Until here, we can have a breath and go to the al-asabiyyah in al-umraan. But please, I want to ask one question. Did you understand that I want you to be convinced that it is not only transmitting events. History is not only transmitting events. History is a matter of analyzing, observing, comparing. This is what Ibn Khaldun's want to say. Did you understand this point? Okay. As I told you, what is al-asabiyyah? Group feeling. Group feeling. What is al-umraan? Social organization, civilization, and what we mentioned about these are synonyms of the history. Okay? Blood relation or corresponding. When we go to al-asabiyyah, the group feeling together, first group feeling that we can notice is the blood relation. The blood ties is something natural. We are not synthesizing it. No, it is something natural. And this will lead to affection for one's relations. Of course, no one wants any harm to be for the relatives and blood ties, and this is something normal. And if any harm went to them, you feel shame that you were not able to defend them. So this is the blood relation. It's not the only relation that we have. We can have other relations like, moreover than the blood relatives and ties and who other? Friends. Tribes. Okay. You meant a wider scale. Nationality. Okay. Religion, the ties of belief, of course. So we have other types. If we have blood relations and relatives, so we have the neighbors, the friends, something that is wider. We have the clients and allies between the tribes or even between the people in our era. You will find that they may make together some ties, clients and allies. All of these are relations that will be under the term of al-asabiyyah, the group feeling. Okay? طيب. In order to have the purity of lineage, in order to have asabiyyah, we shall have a purity of lineage. Maybe some of you, they know from science the genealogy and the genetics and how the morals are transmitted. Did you hear about such a thing? Our parents, father and mother, of course, something will be transmitted, not only the hair and the color of the skin, but morals and characters. They will be transmitted. So there is a difference between when the lineage is confused and when it is pure. A pure lineage, let's see. Actually, the Arabs, I meant the ancient Arabs, those who were old Arabs, of course, they had pure lineages. They are not confused. Why? Because actually their life was poor and they had hard conditions, bad habitats, and necessity of life. They had all of this. So no one wants to come from outside and enter in this society. They are pure. Arab is an Arabian, is married from an Arabian, a man from a woman, and then they get Arabian child. So everything is, you say, purity of lineages. And even if one of them had the opportunity to go out of his tribe, he wouldn't go out of his tribe. Khalas, this is his life. But sometimes there are confusion, not between the Arabs, but between other nationalities. Someone feels well disposed toward another descent. He wants to go to the other descent. There exists an old alliance or client-master relationship. So when he goes there, he marries from this tribe or there, and he becomes one of them. They may be escaping from any commitment they did in their tribe. So this will cause a confusion in the lineage. Relation between leadership and asabiyyah, or group feeling. How the group feeling, how the asabiyyah will lead to a leadership. Group feeling, this asabiyyah, will result in superiority for those who have strong group feeling. This will cause superiority. And this superiority will lead to the leadership. Let's watch together.
And there's a very practical issue, which is if we're hungry and somebody brings back food and drop a carcass on the floor, we're all going to rush in to eat. And if you're lucky enough to be built like a linebacker, you will elbow your way to the front. And if you're the artistic one of the family, you get the elbow in the face. Not a good system to keep the whole tribe alive, and definitely not a good system for cooperation. Because remember, the value of group living means that if I trust you and you trust me, I can fall asleep at night and trust that you will alert me to danger. If I don't trust you, I can't go to sleep at night. It's the same in our companies. If we trust each other, we will turn our backs, we will take risks, we will innovate, we will do things that will change the course of our world. If I don't trust you, I can't do that. I can't do that. There's value in group living and group working. And so if you got an elbow in the face that afternoon, odds are very high that you're not going to wake the guy who punched you if danger's there. You're just not going to do it. Bad system. And so we evolved into hierarchical animals. We're constantly assessing and judging each other, constantly arranging ourselves. Who's the alpha? Who's the dominant? Who's the one who sort of is the more dominant personality or dominant talent in the room? In caveman times, it might have been physical muscle. In a creative industry, it might be talent. In the military, it might be courage. There's no standard by which we judge alphas. It's relative to the industries we're in. And it's relative to us as well. If you've ever met someone and you were nervous while you were meeting them, you're not the alpha. We've all had the experience where we're meeting somebody and we can sense that they're nervous meeting us. You're the alpha.
Okay, so now we knew that in order to be leader, you shall defend your relatives, blood relations, your friends, your neighbors, your society, in order that you be a leader in them. And you shall provide the essential things they may need. In this video, you saw that the man who beats an animal, a wild animal, is the leader. But if he is not capable of defending the tribe or his friends, so they will not have trust in him. We have now not the leadership, but the nobility, what I mentioned, the characters, the good characters.
Just looking at that and saying, well, what's going on there? And what a great example of how people's emotions are affecting their judgments. How is it that our sort of moral feelings and our moral visions change the way that we view the world? They tend to be kind of self-oriented. They're lower in empathy than both liberals and conservatives. They just don't feel other people's pain in the same way. You may be better able to accept life's losers, the less you suffer vicariously with them. Then that's easier to adopt that philosophy. And so your moral vision tells you what your ideology should be and what the facts are. And that's exactly what we find across all these differences. We're able to compare them on 20 or 30 different personality types, liberals, conservatives, and libertarians.
Maybe it's not very clear, the sound here, but we have a very important hadith from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He mentioned that men are minerals, like gold and silver minerals. The best of them, the best ones in pre-Islamic times, are also the best ones in Islam if they were understanding. And this is something that will only focus on the minerals of human beings. And this will come from the purity of lineage of good character. They will be transmitted to the descendants. So the personal qualities will result in nobility and prestige. Final thing is the masters and descents in asabiyyah. Let's watch it.
Each of us belongs to a family. We have parents. Our parents have parents. And their parents have parents. Well, you get the idea. This is called our family tree. It tells us who our ancestors are and where we come from. If you're like most people, you probably know something about your grandparents, and maybe even your great-grandparents. But after that, things get a little fuzzy. Family history helps us uncover the rest of our tree, and it's a lot easier than you might think.
So it's a matter of who are my masters, my grandfathers, mothers, my great-grandmothers and great-grandfathers, and this shall be in a pure lineage and to be transferred in the descendants. We saw this family tree or family history. Again, our introduction was about what is states in flux. So flux, we said that something is changing, stable, unstable, like the education, and states in flux. So Ibn Khaldun was relating what in the Ottoman Empire rise and fall of these empires and these states. What is history? Give me synonyms of history. Huh? Second one, civilization. Tamam, social organization. Requirements for a historian, it's not now an important point, but reasons of untruth in historical information. We mentioned some reasons. Do you remember? Partisanship. Tamam, unawareness of the purpose of the event. The transmitters. Ignorance of Tamam. And we mentioned the distortions, something in the media, praising the high-ranking the persons. Untruth stories. We mentioned some stories. It's not very important to repeat them, but they are weak stories in transmission. How to investigate historical information. We mentioned not only transmission, but analysis. Tamam. Comparison, observation, and the like. Okay, and blood relation or corresponding in the asabiyyah. We mentioned blood relations and relatives. We mentioned friends and neighbors. We mentioned tamam. Purity of lineage in the savage Arabs. We mentioned that in order to be superior, you shall have strong group feeling to be superior and to be a leadership. It may be confused with others, and relation between leadership and asabiyyah, relation between nobility and asabiyyah, and finally, masters and descents in asabiyyah. Thank you, and any questions?